They laughed at her torn shoes, mocked her faded uniform, and called her a beggar's daughter every single day. She cried quietly, studied harder, and never fought back. But one morning, a black luxury car rolled into the school. And within minutes, the whole school fell silent. They were about to learn the truth they never expected. The school gates opened slowly every morning, and hundreds of students walked in with neat uniforms, polished shoes, and expensive backpacks swinging over their shoulders. Luxury cars dropped them off like royalty, white sedans, shining SUVs, and even sports cars that looked too rich for a simple school parking lot. Among them walked a girl who didn't fit into that glittering world. Her name was Aisha. Her uniform was clean, but old. The blue fabric had faded over time. The sleeves were slightly shorter than they should have been, and the collar looked tired, as if it had been washed too many times. Her shoes were her biggest secret. They had small cracks on both sides. The white sole had started to turn yellow, and the laces were tied so tight that they almost looked scared of coming loose. Aisha walked with her head slightly down, not because she was weak, but because she didn't want to meet the eyes of the students who always laughed. She was there on scholarship. Every student at Crescent Elite School knew what that meant. "She's not like us," they would whisper. "She doesn't belong here. She's charity." But Aisha didn't argue. She just walked. She believed education was her only way out. Inside the classroom, her seat was always the last one by the window. From there, she could see the sky. The clouds were the only ones who never judged her. She was intelligent. In fact, she was the smartest student in the entire grade. But being smart in that school was dangerous, especially when you were poor. That morning, as she quietly placed her worn-out bag on her chair, laughter echoed behind her. "Careful, everyone," a sharp voice said. "Her bag might be older than our parents." The class burst into laughter. The voice belonged to Zayn Malik. He was rich. Not just rich, his father owned several hotels in the city. He wore expensive watches and sneakers that cost more than Aisha's family paid for rent. He looked at her shoes. "Hey, scholarship girl," he said loudly. "Did you steal those shoes from a museum?" More laughter. Aisha didn't reply. She just opened her worn notebook and stared at the blank page. Her hands were shaking slightly. But she didn't cry. Not here. Not in front of them. Behind her eyes, there was a storm she never showed. The teacher entered, and the laughter stopped. The class began. The board was filled with equations and questions. The teacher asked, "Can anyone solve this problem?" Silence. Everyone avoided eye contact. No one wanted to look foolish. Aisha slowly raised her hand. The teacher smiled. "Yes, Aisha." She stood up, walked to the board, and solved the problem with calm confidence. Every number flowed perfectly. When she finished, the teacher said, "Excellent work." Some students rolled their eyes. Zayn whispered to his friends, "What's the use of being smart if she can't even afford new shoes?" The words hit her like silent bullets. After class, she went to the washroom and locked herself inside a stall. She pressed her hand against her mouth to stop herself from crying loudly. Her reflection in the small broken mirror looked tired. "You're stronger than this," she whispered to herself. "You're here for a reason." At home, things weren't easier. Her house was small. The walls were thin. The fan made strange noises. Her mother worked 2 jobs, cleaning houses in the morning and stitching clothes at night. Aisha studied under a weak yellow light while her mother slept on the floor beside her. Sometimes, the electricity went out. Sometimes, there was no dinner. But she never skipped school. The next day, the bullying became worse. Someone had hidden her lunchbox. Someone stuck a paper on her back that said, "Poor girl." She found out after walking through the hallway while everyone laughed. Her heart broke a little more. But she stayed silent. That afternoon, while cleaning the board, the teacher announced something important. "Tomorrow is the school donation day," he said. "Everyone will wear their best clothes. Parents and special guests will be coming." Aisha's heart dropped. Best clothes? She had only one dress. And it wasn't beautiful. That night, she sat on the floor and stitched the loose threads of her uniform. Her mother watched quietly. "I'm proud of you," her mother said softly. "Even when the world hurts you, you stay kind." Aisha smiled weakly. She didn't know that the next day would change her life forever. That the car that would enter the school would stop in front of her. The next morning, the school looked different. The gates were decorated with colorful ribbons and shiny banners that said, "Annual Charity and Honor Day." Teachers walked around nervously, fixing decorations and guiding students to stand properly. Luxury cars lined up outside the school like a private car show. One by one, parents stepped out wearing expensive suits, sunglasses, and confident smiles. Aisha stood near the classroom door, trying to smooth the wrinkles in her plain uniform. She hadn't slept much. She spent half the night stitching tiny tears and carefully washing her dress. It was clean, but it could never compete with the glittering outfits around her. Girls walked past her wearing dresses that sparkled like stars. Some boys wore tailored suits. Whispers started again. Did she forget it's a special day? She looks like she's going to wash floors, not attend a function. Aisha lowered her eyes. Her hands tightened around the strap of her worn bag. She tried to breathe slowly so her tears wouldn't fall. Zayn stood near his group of friends, laughing loudly. His hair was perfectly styled. His watch shone in the sunlight. He noticed Aisha. He walked closer and spoke loud enough for others to hear. "Hey, charity case," he said with a smirk. "Today is donation day. Do you need someone to donate clothes to you?" The laughter around him exploded. Aisha felt like her heart had dropped into her stomach. She wanted to disappear. She wanted to run. But she stayed. Because deep inside, a quiet voice said, "You belong here." The school bell rang. Everyone gathered in the main hall where a small stage had been built. Golden curtains, bright lights, and a microphone stood in the center. Teachers started calling students to present their charity projects. Rich kids donated money. Some donated books. Some donated expensive gadgets. Claps echoed through the hall. "Now," the principal said into the microphone, "we will honor our top academic student of the year." The room went quiet. Students straightened up. Parents leaned forward. The principal smiled. "This student joined our school on full scholarship and secured the highest grades in every subject." Aisha's heart started to beat faster. "This student is..." There was a sudden sound. A deep, powerful engine sound. Outside the hall. Everyone turned their heads. A black luxury car had stopped at the school gate. The glass was dark. The body shined like a mirror. The headlights looked like eyes. Whispers filled the air. "Whose car is that?" "That doesn't belong to any parent here." "Is someone famous coming?" The principal stopped speaking. The teachers looked confused. Even Zayn stepped forward, curious. The school guard opened the gates slowly. The car moved forward. Very slowly. Every eye followed it. It stopped in front of the main hall. Silence fell over the entire school. The door of the car opened. A polished black shoe stepped out. Then a man appeared. Tall. Calm. Wearing a simple dark suit. He didn't smile. He didn't speak yet. But his presence felt heavy. Powerful. Teachers quickly walked toward him. "Sir, welcome," the principal said nervously. "May we know?" The man raised his hand slightly. "I'm here for a student," he said in a deep, steady voice. The hall froze. "A student," someone whispered. Zayn crossed his arms. "Probably someone important's father," he muttered. The man's eyes scanned the crowd slowly. Past the rich kids. Past the shining dresses. Past the confident faces. And then, his eyes stopped. On Aisha. She felt it. She slowly looked up. Their eyes met. Her breath stopped. There was something familiar in his gaze. Something warm. Something painful. The man took a slow step forward. Then another. The sound of his shoes echoed in the silent hall. Teachers looked confused. Students whispered nervously. He walked right toward her. Zayn laughed awkwardly. Looks like the scholarship girl has finally got a fan, he whispered to his friends. The man stopped right in front of Aisha. He looked down at her worn dress, her old shoes, her tired eyes, and then he spoke softly, but clearly. I've been looking for you. Gasps filled the room. Aisha's lips trembled. I don't understand, she whispered. The man turned slightly toward the principal. She is the student I came for, he said. Teachers looked shocked. Parents whispered loudly now. The principal adjusted his glasses nervously. May we ask who you are, sir? The man took a slow breath. He straightened his shoulders. My name is Mr. Ame Rahman, he said calmly. A wave of shock swept through the room. Some parents stood up. Some students dropped their jaws. Even Zayn's smile disappeared. That name wasn't normal. That name belonged to a billionaire. One of the richest men in the country. Owner of major companies, hospitals, universities, and charities. And he had come for Aisha. Aisha felt like the floor was disappearing under her feet. Why would someone like him come for her? What did he want? Her heart started to race. The silence was louder than any scream. And the truth had not even been revealed yet. The hall felt frozen. No one moved. No one breathed loudly. Every eye kept switching between Aisha and Mr. Ame Rahman, as if the truth might fall from the ceiling if they stared hard enough. The principal swallowed nervously. Sir, are you sure? He asked softly. This is just a scholarship student. The air shifted. Mr. Rahman turned slowly toward him. Be very careful with the word just, he said calmly. The way he said it wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. But it was powerful. The principal nodded, embarrassed. Aisha's hands trembled slightly. Sir, she whispered, almost in tears, I don't know why you're here. I'm nobody. That's when Mr. Rahman looked back at her, and his eyes softened. You are not nobody, he said quietly. You are everything. Some students shifted uncomfortably. Zayn leaned toward his friend. What drama is this? He muttered. Mr. Rahman lifted his hand gently, and a school staff member brought a microphone closer to him. He didn't ask for the stage. He didn't need it. His voice filled the hall naturally. I fund many scholarships, he began calmly. I support hundreds of students across the country. I rarely step into schools like this. He paused and looked directly at Aisha. But some stories are not normal. The hall was silent. Only the soft sound of air conditioners and breathing could be heard. Aisha, he called her name gently. She flinched. She didn't know how he knew her name. She took a tiny step forward. Yes, sir, her voice cracked. Mr. Rahman took out a small, worn envelope from the inside of his coat. It didn't look rich. It didn't look expensive. It looked old, faded, important. He held it carefully. Do you recognize this? He asked. Aisha leaned closer. Her heart stopped. It was a photograph. A very old photograph. Of a man and a woman, holding a tiny baby. Her breath caught in her throat. That's my mother, she whispered. Her legs almost gave up. She grabbed the side of a chair to steady herself. Mr. Rahman nodded slowly. Yes, he said. The room felt unreal. Then why do you have it? She whispered. He closed his eyes for a moment, as if remembering pain that never left. Because, he said softly, I took that photo. A ripple of gasps spread. Zayn stood straight now, no longer smiling. A teacher covered her mouth in shock. Aisha felt like her chest was about to explode. Sir, what are you saying? She asked, shaking. Mr. Rahman looked at her and said the words that changed her world. I am your father's closest friend. The word friend hung heavily in the air. He continued before anyone could speak. Your father saved my life many years ago, he said. He was not rich. He was not famous. He was only brave. Aisha felt tears rise. She had never known her father. Her mother never spoke much about him. I was in danger, he went on. Your father stood in front of me and took a blow meant for me.
His voice cracked slightly.
He died protecting me.
Silence.
Pure, painful silence.
Aisha's ears rang. Her heart felt like it had been ripped open. Mr. Rahman took a slow breath.
I promised him, he said, that I would protect his family if I ever survived.
He looked down at her.
I searched for you for years.
The students sat frozen. Even the bullies were speechless.
But your mother didn't want help, he added softly. She wanted you to grow up strong, not spoiled by wealth.
Tears started rolling down Aisha's cheeks.
I didn't want special treatment, Mr. Rahman said.
I wanted to see your strength, your character,
your heart.
He looked at the worn shoes.
At your silence. At your suffering.
He lifted his eyes again.
And I saw everything. Aisha whispered, barely audible. You've been watching.
A small nod.
I was the secret supporter of your scholarship, he said.
I helped pay your fees.
But I never showed myself. The words fell like thunder. Her life suddenly made sense.
The sudden approval of her scholarship. The anonymous help. The strange moments when things worked out.
Zain felt a strange tightening in his chest.
He remembered every cruel word he had used. Every laugh. Every joke.
Mr. Rahman stepped closer to Aisha. He reached into his pocket and placed something gently in her hand.
A small gold pendant. Simple. Beautiful.
This belonged to your father, he said.
Aisha clutched it tightly. Her fingers shook. Her voice broke. Why now? She asked.
Mr. Rahman looked around the hall.
At the rich kids. At the laughing students.
At the stage. At the judgment. Because, he said calmly, today, everyone deserved to learn a lesson.
The words hung in the air like thunder.
The storm was not over yet. The hall didn't feel like a school anymore.
It felt like a courtroom.
Every word Mr. Rahman had spoken hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. Aisha stood there, holding the small gold pendant, her hands shaking, her heart completely overwhelmed.
Zain felt something he had never felt before. Fear. Not the kind that came from punishment, but the kind that comes from shame.
Mr. Rahman gently lifted the microphone again, but his voice this time was slow, steady, and full of quiet strength.
I didn't come here to show off my name, he said.
I didn't come here to scare anyone. He slowly turned, his eyes scanning the crowd of students. I came to remind you of something very simple.
He paused,
then looked straight at the students who had sat behind Aisha every day. Character is not measured by shoes.
Whispers started.
Respect is not found in watches.
Silence grew heavier.
Kindness is not bought with money. Parents shifted uncomfortably in their seats.
Teachers lowered their heads. Students felt smaller. He then raised his hand slightly and pointed gently toward Aisha.
This girl walked these halls quietly while carrying pain none of you could imagine.
Zain clenched his jaw.
She was stronger than your laughter. Stronger than your cruelty.
Stronger than your pride. He turned toward the principal.
Do you know how many nights she studied under candlelight?
The principal swallowed.
Do you know how often she skipped meals so she could afford notebooks?
A few parents looked down.
Shame touched their faces for the first time. Mr. Rahman stepped closer to the stage. But she never complained.
He looked at Aisha again. She never begged. She never fought back. She only worked harder.
Aisha felt the weight of the words on her heart. Her pain had been seen.
Her silence had been heard. Zain's chest tightened. Memories of every insult, every joke, every laugh,
flashed in his mind like broken glass. Mr. Rahman turned back to the hall. And yet, this school allowed her to be humiliated.
Some teachers shifted. The atmosphere changed. It wasn't anger. It was realization. Guilt. Truth.
I want someone to speak, Mr. Rahman said calmly.
Silence. Deep silence. No one dared.
Then, surprisingly, Zain stood up.
His legs felt weak. His voice didn't sound like himself.
I said things, he admitted softly. The room turned to him.
Some students widened their eyes.
I laughed, he continued. I made jokes. He looked at Aisha for the first time without anger.
Without pride. Only regret.
I hurt her.
His friends looked shocked. They had never seen him like this. He swallowed hard.
I didn't think it mattered.
His words felt heavy. Mr. Rahman didn't smile. He didn't nod. He just looked at him calmly.
Pain always matters, he said softly.
Zan nodded slowly. I'm sorry, he said. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just honestly.
Aisha's heart pounded.
She didn't reply. Not because she was cold,
but because she was still trying to breathe through the storm of emotions. Then something else happened. Parents in the crowd began to whisper to each other.
I had no idea, one mother said.
We teach our children wrong things sometimes, another replied. The principal walked slowly to the microphone, adjusted it nervously.
There will be changes, he said.
From today, this school will stand for respect.
He looked at Aisha.
And for protection. A soft murmur spread. Aisha slowly felt something strange inside her. For the first time, she didn't feel small.
She didn't feel invisible. She felt seen.
Zan walked forward slowly,
each step heavy, humbling. He stopped a few feet from her.
I'm sorry, he said again.
His voice cracked this time. She looked at him. She saw his fear, his shame, his humanity, and she realized something.
He was just a broken boy hiding behind arrogance.
She didn't smile. She didn't speak. But she gently nodded her head. That small movement felt more powerful than 100 words. Mr. Rahman looked at both of them.
This, he said softly, is how stories change.
The worst of the storm had passed. But one final light
was about to rise. The hall felt lighter. Not because everything was suddenly perfect, but because truth had finally entered the room. Aisha still held a small pendant in her hand. Its soft warmth felt like a silent heartbeat from a father she never got to meet. Mr. Rahman turned to the principal once more.
Finish what you started, he said calmly.
The principal nodded and cleared his throat.
He looked down at the paper in his hands.
Now, we will continue the academic honors, he announced.
The room was strangely quiet. No whispers. No giggles. Real silence. Respectful silence.
He smiled gently and said the words that changed everything. The top student of the year is Aisha Khan.
For a second, she thought she imagined it. Her ears rang. Her hands trembled. The students began to clap. Slowly. Then louder. Then louder. A real clap.
Not forced.
Not fake.
Aisha walked to the stage with hesitant steps. Every footstep felt like it carried years of pain behind it.
She stood under the bright lights.
She held the certificate in her hands.
And for the first time, she smiled. A real smile. Mr. Rahman looked at her from below the stage. Pride in his eyes. Not loud pride. Quiet pride. Strong pride.
After the ceremony, students gathered in small groups. But something was different.
No one laughed. No one mocked. Some quietly approached Aisha.
I didn't know, one girl said softly.
You were really strong, another whispered.
Zan stood a few feet away, watching her. For once in his life, he didn't feel superior. He felt human.
He walked up to her slowly. I was wrong, he said. She looked at him.
And this time, she smiled slightly, not because she forgot,
but because she chose peace.
Mr. Rahman met Aisha outside the hall near the luxury car. The sunlight touched the car, making it shine.
But the car no longer mattered. He handed her a simple envelope.
Your mother never wanted you to grow up spoiled, he said gently.
I respect that.
Aisha nodded.
I don't want money, she said. He smiled softly. I figured. He opened the envelope. Inside was not money. Not a check.
But a letter. You have been accepted into one of the best universities in the country, he said quietly. Her breath stopped.
No strings. No conditions. Just opportunity. Tears filled her eyes again. But these tears were different. They weren't pain.
They were hope. Years later, Aisha stood on the same school stage.
But this time, she was no longer the girl with worn-out shoes. She was a guest speaker. She wore a simple, elegant dress. Not expensive. Not showy. Just confident. The students listened quietly as she spoke. She told them about silence. About pain.
About strength. And she ended with words that stayed in their hearts forever. Never judge someone by their clothes, their shoes, or their background.
She looked out at them.
You never know who they are, or who's standing behind them. Among the crowd, Zion stood quietly.
No longer arrogant. No longer loud. Just thoughtful.
After the speech, he clapped.
But not loudly. Respectfully.
Aisha walked out of the hall.
The sky was bright.
The air felt clean.
She touched the pendant around her neck. And whispered quietly.
I made it. And somewhere, in the quiet wind,
it felt like her father heard her. Happy. Proud.
At peace. If this story touched your heart, remember this: never judge someone by their clothes, their shoes, or their background. The quietest people often carry the strongest stories. Be kind, because you never know what someone is fighting silently. If you enjoyed this emotional story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs this message today. Until next time, stay kind, stay humble, and keep believing in the power of good hearts.